So, welcome to episode 57 of Driver Suit Blog Radio. As always, I'm your host, David G. Firestone, and I've just finished watching The Clash at the time of recording. I like The Clash overall. I did like the short track beaten and bang style, even though I'm not a big short track guy. I still enjoyed it. I did, however, have a few news and notes that I was thinking about. Well, rather just notes. So, the race was determined through heat laps earlier in the day, and then you had the main event that night. Can I ask an honest question here? Could someone please explain to me why the heat races each were 25 laps, but the two last chance races were 50 laps? Shouldn't it be reversed? Because I like the idea of four 50-lap heat races and then two last chance 25-lap races, which, that's the way I think it should have been. I don't know why they reversed it like that. At one point during the telecast, Gwen Stefani wandered into the booth while the racing was in action. This is why it really annoyed me. She was so useless as a commentator, I had to leave the room. Seriously, I wouldn't have minded it as much if this was in between one of the races, but no. The race was going on, and she's yammering on about teaching her kids to drive and how she's never gotten into an accident, and California traffic, and a bunch of other stuff that has absolutely nothing to do with the cars on track that we're watching. Whatever Fox executive decided that this would be a good idea should be fired instantly, immediately, and permanently. You would have to fire him, rehire him, and then fire him or her just to make sure the point got across. The pre-race concert featured Cypress Hill. I swear on my life, no joke, no exaggeration, I didn't know Cypress Hill was still a thing. Because you hadn't heard of them. They performed their one big hit, Insane in the Membrane. And other than that, what are they known for? What albums have they put out in the last, 30 years? The last time I saw them in any capacity, and this should tell you how out of touch they are, I saw them on the first run of Beavis and Butthead. And in related news, as one of the members was wearing a bucket hat, I think people who wear bucket hats in 2023 need to be shot. And yes, this includes Jake Hager. One of the things I found interesting about driver intros was that they were done by team as opposed to starting position, which is kind of weird to be honest with you, because having the drivers come out in the order that they're running is logical, but just having oh, this is Team Penske, oh, this is Hendrick Motorsports, oh, this is 2311 Racing, just seems kind of off. Then when they showed some of the pictures of all the cars set up, I really missed the days where every driver had a stylized version of their signature on their name rails instead of logos or nicknames or printed blocks. I miss the signature days. In terms of the broadcast, there's a few things. Fox really needs to spend the money to get Tony Stewart in the booth as often as they can. He was really, really good here. I'm not taking anything away from Clint Boyer. Boyer's good too, but Stewart is really good, and he has great chemistry with the other announcers. So, yeah, I don't know why they... Well, actually, I do know. He's got 2 race teams. He's got a wife who's a racer. But he needs to be in the booth. He's too good not to be in the booth. Also, the desk placement during NASCAR race day was really good because you had the backdrop of LA and you had really dramatic clouds, and I thought that was a really good move. Now, speaking of the Coliseum, the LA Coliseum, the constant shots of the LA Coliseum sign just got so irritating after a while. We get it. It's the LA Coliseum. You don't have to show the front of the gate literally every 30 minutes. I don't think I've ever seen a sporting event, never mind a race, a sporting event that has had more shots of the front of the building than this one. It's really, really annoying. It got really, really tacky after a while. It also showed that whoever's in charge of the Coliseum needs to clean the sign a bit more often. It just really annoyed me. And while we're on the subject, I'd like someone, and I don't care who, to explain to me the logic of lighting the torch, the Olympic torch at the stadium, during the halftime ceremonies. Not at the beginning. It's like you had Rob Lowe deliver the command and then the torch was lit. Okay, that would rule. That would be awesome. They literally did it after the Wiz Khalifa concert. I don't care if I pronounce it right. I don't give a shit. And also, when it comes to Wiz, he constantly looked. When he wasn't performing and they were showing footage of him, he looked like he did not want to be there. He looked completely bored. And I get it, NASCAR's probably not his thing. Now, this was the first of the NASCAR races for the year, but it was also this weekend also has the NFL Pro Bowl, which I am watching as I'm recording this. And if this is what the Pro Bowl has become, it needs to die. It's flag football. Not even like flag football with a full field, like a 35, 40-yard field. It's like a half of a field. No helmets. You know, the uniforms are little more than shirts, and the guys are wearing basically shorts. It looks like a bunch of middle-aged dads goofing around at a cookout. It doesn't look like a professional sport. These guys don't look professional right now. And by the way, just call it the Pro Bowl. You don't have to call it the Pro Bowl games. Come on, man. And that's the thing. The Clash is also an exhibition race, but NASCAR is treating it like it matters. Like, this is something we want to show off that we're proud of. If this is what the Pro Bowl is, let it die. Because it's just, I don't get, I understand the concussion thing. Believe me, I get it. I understand this is an exhibition. I get it. But for God's sake, it's not fun to watch. The crowd is dead. Even when there was a touchdown scored, there was little, if any, reaction. That's the thing. People are paying money to get into this. And it's not exactly an empty stadium here. The stadium looks almost completely sold out. But if this is, again, this is what, and I get that nobody really cares about the Pro Bowl. I get it. But come on, at least give us a reason to care. Why are that? Wait, hold on. And I'm watching this. There are crash pads set up behind the end zones. Why? Why? What is the point here? And you know what? I also watched the NHL All-Star Game yesterday. Just, again, I get that it's an exhibition and that you don't really, you don't want to put too much physicality into an exhibition game like that because you don't want your players to get hurt. Okay, fine. I get it. But if you're going to have 3-on-3 hockey as a part of the All-Star game, make the periods 20 minutes long. Because again, I've never been to an NHL All-Star game. The tickets are too expensive. And you're charging people this amount of money for basically 30 minutes of gameplay, whereas you can go to a normal hockey game and get 60 minutes. And just have the four conferences, just semifinals. You can do the same thing, but with 20-minute periods. Give the players some more time on the ice. Give the fans some more time with watching an actual sport. Just change it. Now, do you see Major League Baseball doing this with their All-Star game? No. Do you see the NBA doing it with their All-Star game? No. Because they understand that it means something to the fans, and they're gonna play it straight. I seriously do not understand the logic of just taking something that that potentially people could be interested in and could have an investment in and make money with, and just turning it into a clown show. Again, none of these guys look like football players. They all look like middle-aged dads goofing around at a cookout. Yeah, so I'm going to just stop ranting about all-star games and exhibition games. I'm going to rant about Subway after the break. I'll be right back. Okay, so we're back, and from one annoyance to another, I'm going to discuss something that really annoyed me recently. Now, I'm a big fan of not overcomplicating the uncomplicated, which I think most people are. Most average human beings are very much into the whole idea of keeping things simple. Keeping things simple is a good move, and a lot of companies don't seem to grasp this. And I'll explain why I'm talking about this. So I was watching, I was watching both nights of The Clash, and I decided that I felt that some meatball subs would quench my hunger. As such, I decided to go to Subway's website to order some from delivery, as you do. So I don't pay much attention to commercials these days, as most of them are also needlessly overcomplicated for no reason. Seriously, for many of these commercials, if you watch them with the sound off, try to figure out what they're selling before the logo at the end. I'm serious, you'll get a lot of them wrong. So recently, Subway launched what they call the Subway series, which is a new line of subs that are apparently somehow supposed to be attracting new customers. So I'm going to read to you what the Subway series sandwiches are. Number 1, the Philly. Number 2, the Outlaw. Number 3, the Monster. Number 4, Supreme Meats. Number 5, Bella Matza. Number 6, the Boss. Number 7, the Mexicali. Number 8, the Great Garlic. Number 9, the Champ. Number 10, the All-American Club. Number 11, the Subway Club. And number 12, the Turkey Club. Now, why is this annoying me? Well, let me ask you this. Based solely on the names that I just said, please describe the contents of the Subway sandwiches in question, with the exception of the Philly, because we all know what a Philly cheesesteak is. Let's go. I'll wait. Oh yeah, you can't. Now, this would not be an irritating thing for me if you could just go onto the Subway website, look at the menu, and In the area where you can select the sandwich, there's a little if there was a little description underneath the name, I would be fine with it. But no. There are no descriptions outside of the 3 categories. The first 3 are in the cheesesteak category, the next 3 are Italianos, the next 3 are chicken, and the final 3 are clubs. Even with these categories, outside of a couple, it's next to impossible to determine what they are because there's no descriptions on the website when you click on them. Now, this wouldn't be so much of a problem if, for all intents and purposes, there was a description on them on a website that's 75% blank white space. You have 75% white space, you have little buttons that say the name of the sandwich, but you can't add a couple of sentences saying what, even if you have to use buzzwords, just say what they are. I mean, this is not like McDonald's or Burger King, where many, if not all of the menu options are iconic to a certain degree. You know what? And you know what each item is by just hearing the name. Like I say Big Mac, you know it's 2 all beef patties, special sauce, lettuce, cheese, pickles, onions on a sesame seed bun. We all know that. We all know what a Whopper is. We all know what Wendy's sells. But when you have a brand new, well, relatively brand new menu, it's been out for a while, it's just, how do you explain this to new customers? And again, this is not an isolated problem, but in a lot of these instances, the menus, the sites that you order from, there's a lot of options on the menu, so it's not feasible. Here, there is more than enough unused space on the website to put a sentence or 2 in. Now, you go to the normal subs that aren't part of the Subway series and that are just the subs that are all there, like the meatball sub, the Black Forest ham sub. Almost every one of them, with maybe 1 or 2 exceptions, you can tell what's in it based solely on the name. Like Black Forest ham. Okay, it's a Black Forest ham sandwich. Simple enough. Meatball marinara, it's a sub with meatballs and marinara. See, the thing is, when you deal with the general public, keeping things simple is a good move for websites, especially ones that cater to the general public, because you have a lot of people who use these who aren't the most computer savvy people on the face of the planet, and they might not be able to understand this. And I'm actually kind of amazed in 2023 this strategy is being utilized. And it's also kind of weird because Subway is betting the farm on this new line. And I don't know why. I'm not unreasonable, but sometimes just because you can doesn't mean that you should, and just because you can't doesn't mean you shouldn't. Just add the descriptions. It'll make things easier. Okay, so I'm going to talk about streaming services because I got some interesting news this week, so I'll be right back. So after our final break, we're going to be talking. Welcome back. As you all know, I've discussed streaming services before, but I'm going to discuss them again this week because I got some news that really proves my point. Can we just admit that the whole streaming service industry is doomed at this point? I'm not a business major, I'm not a business expert, but when almost every single individual platform in a specific industry or specific industry subset are losing money hand over fist. Doesn't that mean that said industry is not long for this world? When it comes to the streaming wars, even the iconic ones are losing money. I think the ridiculousness of this whole thing was summed up very well by Jim Gaffigan. He summed up the streaming wars perfectly when he tweeted, "They should bundle all the streaming services together and call it cable." It's a great quote because it describes viewing habits very well. Very, very few people are devoted to a specific network or a specific platform. Most people, most normal people, will watch several different shows over several different channels, and most of them don't watch one singular channel at all times. This is why the business model of all of these streaming services is not good. For most people, when it comes to what these services are, there are at most 3 or 4 shows any individual wants to watch. And for many, including myself, the costs associated with these shows and these services just aren't worth the price. I mean, I just canceled my Paramount Plus subscription until the new season of Beavis and Butthead comes on. I'm not the only person who did this for a specific show. Look at what happened with Star Trek and Star Wars fans when their seasons of their new favorite spin-offs ended. So do their descriptions. I'm not going to pay for a subscription I'm not using for several months. Why would I? Now, I bring this up because it's becoming clearer and clearer that these services are hemorrhaging money. And in a recent news story from Variety, Comcast President Mike Cavanaugh and NBC Universal Chief Jeff Shell discussed Peacock's losses. Now, according to the article, quote, Peacock's full-year EBITDA loss of $2.5 billion was in line with the outlook we provided a year ago. And for 2023, we expect Peacock's losses to be up modestly to around $3 billion, Comcast President Mike Cavanaugh said during the company's fourth quarter earnings call Thursday. He also said that, as we've said previously, we believe 2023 will be peak losses for Peacock and from there steadily improve. NBC Universal Chief Jeff Shell reiterated Cavanaugh's words later in the call, telling analysts, "We will hit our peak this year and then we will improve steadily from there." Shell said that Peacock's performance makes it, quote, very clear we picked the right business model. I don't even know what part of that sentence to make fun of first. And that the estimated upcoming $3 billion losses will be rewarded. Yeah, rewarded with more losses. As NBCU, quote, wouldn't be investing in Peacock if we didn't think it was going to return the media segment to growth over time. Okay, let's just do some fucking math here. So here are Peacock's EBITDA losses per year. In 2021, Peacock lost $1.7 billion for 2020 and 2021. For 2022, Peacock lost $2.5 billion, and this year they're expected to lose $3 billion. So you add that up, $7.2 billion in losses over the course of 3 years. Here's some perspective. If Comcast took the $7.2 billion and instead of spending it on Peacock, gave every person in the United States $20, it would come up to a total of $6,638 million, or $562 million less than what they've already lost and are going to lose on Peacock. You're claiming that this will be the peak for losses? No, it won't. What are you basing that on? This is never going to be profitable. Just give up. Just to overcome these levels of losses, divine intervention is the only thing that they have to work with. I just don't see this working out too well. Now, Peacock is the worst, but it's not the only subscription service, and it's certainly not the only service that's losing money. every single streaming service is down significantly. Whether it be Paramount, the Disney networks, Fox, Netflix, you name a service, I'm willing to bet they're losing money. Again, there's simply too many options. They all cost too much. And none of them are worth what they're charging for. I mean, I know people who have multiple subscriptions. Works out for them, great. For the average Joe, a lot of us don't feel the need. And the only reason that I have Peacock is because I'm an Xfinity customer and I have it as part of my package. I'll use it for the occasional race and for WWE premium live events, but outside of that, there is really nothing I want to watch. I'm loyal to a degree like most people, but my loyalty has limits. Needlessly high costs can and will affect my loyalty, as it will be for many others. Now, NASCAR and other racing fans who watch NBC stations for racing are very worried right now because Comcast is sooner rather than later going to force them to watch races on streaming platforms. And quite frankly, we all saw how well this worked out with the Toronto IndyCar fiasco, which was so bad it couldn't even generate a .01 rating. When it comes to the streaming services ship, it's hit the iceberg, it's sinking fast, yet every member of the crew thinks nothing is wrong and they're proceeding as normal. Nobody is winning here. The fans lose, the sports and the programming loses, and the platforms lose, but yet nothing is going to change because they've sunk so much money into this, they can't turn back. This is why you need somebody in life to realize that something has hit the wall and pull the plug. GM pulled the plug on the EV1 because they realized that the technology in question had hit the wall, it was at a dead end, it was never going to be anything more than what it was, so they had to cancel the project, and their losses were minor compared to what's going on with Peacock and NBC. And even then, it's adjusted for inflation. Even adjusted for inflation, it's bad. What amazes me here is also that these companies seem to think that they'll figure out something that can overcome this. How? How do you plan on overcoming just billions upon billions of losses? You have platforms that obviously aren't working. The technology is not where it needs to be. The fan interest is not where it needs to be. But yet you can think you can overcome these. I promise you, you'll see it sooner rather than later. The smaller services will go under and disappear. Maybe some of the larger platforms will remain, at least for the time being. But long term, enjoy it while you can, because these losses are not going to change. If these trends continue, the streaming service wars will end in mutually assured destruction. And I'm frankly not shocked. Not shocked. Yeah, so with that, I'm going to end episode 57 of Driver Suit Blog Radio right here. I'll get more news and notes next week. I've got something else I may or may not be working on. I'm Dave Farsley. If you like, comment, share, and subscribe. I'll see you next week for episode 58 of Driver Suit Blog Radio.